Today, I'm going to be talking about Linux Tentacle. At the moment, we have a Windows Tentacle and an SSH for Linux, which works really nice. But customers have been asking for a Linux Tentacle, mostly for security. They don't want to open SSH ports on their production servers. And one of the nice things about Tentacle is it can pull back to the Octopus server. So today I'm going to give a quick demo about where we're at and where we're headed. So what you're going to see today is thanks to the work of Tom, Cam, Rob, and John mostly. So kudos to them. And demo time. So I have a Linux on one side and an Octopus on the other side. I've got a test ready to roll. A script ready to roll. The script is going to install the Tentacle for me and set it up, and it should appear in my Octopus. I'll get that started because it can take a little while, and I'll go through what the script does. So the script, the first thing is an apt-get install Tentacle. So that's downloading the package from our Debian repository, installing it. It also sets up a default instance just for convenience and provides some helpful instructions what to do next after it's installed. The next two lines are configure. It's just standard Octopus configure commands or standard Tentacle configure commands. And then the Tentacle gets registered with my Octopus server and then starts an agent so we can see what's happening. So this is my Tentacle running on Linux. And if all went well, it's in my Octopus. Yes. So part of the challenge of doing the Linux Tentacle, getting it running on Linux is one part of it. The other part is getting Octopus to actually work with a Linux Tentacle, because we usually think of Tentacle as PowerShell and SSH as Bash. So we've had to reconsider how deployments and health checks work when Tentacle can have either PowerShell or Bash on the other end. So in my health check, for my Linux Tentacle, it's running my custom Bash machine policy script, which is what I want it to do. And I've set up a project here, just a simple run script from package project. And hopefully it will upload Calamari, upload my package, run my Bash script from the package, and there's a bit of variable substitution in there as well for good measure. So hello Linux Tentacle at my host. So you can do deployments on Linux in a Tentacle, which is awesome. All right. So what's next? There's a bunch of customers in our community Slack who are really keen to get their hands on Linux Tentacle, and we have a bunch of support requests as well. So we want to get that in their hands as early as possible to get their feedback, make sure we're doing the right thing, and this is what they expect. Especially I think around the install and configure part, because that's a bit different from the traditional Tentacle. There's no UI. We have API tests to get running on a Linux Tentacle to make sure that all the functionality we expect is actually working. And then there's a bunch of miscellaneous stuff around the portal, docs, and marketing, just to get everything in line for Linux Tentacle. If you have any questions or comments, please join us in the Pod Blue Ring Slack channel, and we'd be happy to discuss with you. And that's it. Ta-da!
Very nice.
Can you drill in? Is there any more that you can tell us about how the changes to health checks and how they look in this new world?
Yeah, sure. So instead of, at the moment, there's a Tentacle custom custom script and a SSH custom script. Instead of that, it's just PowerShell and Bash. So SSH targets and Linux tentacles will run the Bash part of the Bash custom script, and PowerShell. Things that have PowerShell on the other end will run the PowerShell script.
Will it require PowerShell to be installed on the Linux servers? Like PowerShell core, sorry.
No, it doesn't. Has nothing to do with PowerShell. It's just
Okay.
.NET, yeah. Or .NET Core. I keep saying .NET.
One of the other points to make about that health check is now there's a piece of information we were previously recording during health checks that were kind of just there for the sake of it. And that's the operating system and the shell that the health check runs under. We've got some changes coming in that will start, first of all, sending that back so we can use that information for metrics to see what targets users have. But more importantly for this work is that we'll actually use that information about what shell it is to determine what version of Calamari will get sent down over the wire. Because now, previously when we were doing a tentacle deployment, it would know to send down the normal full framework Calamari. Whereas now, we kind of need to know in advance which version of Calamari to send down. So that some of that information coming back from the health check is now more important than it was before.
Hey Shane, you mentioned around security that customers want Linux Tentacle so they don't have to open SSH. Are they looking for polling tentacles, or are they looking for listening tentacles, or is it a bit of a mixture of both? Like they feel more trustworthy with Linux, with a listening tentacle and our special port open because of some reason?
The impression that I'm getting is that polling tentacles is the preferred way to do it. But I'm not entirely certain if they're against listening tentacles.
Yeah, but there's nothing precluding them at all from doing both. Once using a tentacle agent, it does everything it does, Windows or Linux. It's kind of very high parity.
Yeah, it does. It should do all the exact same things that the Windows tentacle does. Yeah.
Are there any limitations compared to a Windows tentacle? I'm assuming the C# script and F# scripts still don't work because they didn't with .NET Core.
Yeah, there are steps that, like IIS, for example, and C# and F# scripts that won't run.
Yep.
Things that don't run in Bash.
Isn't that under Mono? They run under Mono, but I'm assuming Linux Tentacle always uses the .NET Core Calamari, not the full framework Mono. Is there any way for them to run the full framework Mono version with this?
No, not at the moment. The assumption is if you've got the tentacle running there, by definition, you must have .NET Core available and running. Yeah. So we just kind of go with that rather than adding the confusion and complexity of selecting Mono or not Mono.
Yep. That makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that obviously some of the step types aren't going to apply. The C#, F# limitation might not be immediately obvious.
I think that's really the biggest difference.
How do customers go about upgrading Tentacle when we ship new versions they want to? Is it just a case of going through the same process with that?
No, it's not the same. We haven't figured that part out yet. The current way that Tentacle gets upgraded through the UI isn't going to work. So yeah, we have to figure that out, whether they have to like apt-get update, or if we can provide some functionality for us to do that for them through the UI. Yeah, we have to figure that out.
Is it only Tentacle as Tentacle? Do we support Tentacle as worker on Linux?
I don't know. You can add a Linux Tentacle as a worker.
Okay, cool.
I'm not sure what it does though.
It should just work, right?
It should
all just line up, because under the hood, it's all just a tentacle at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So additional to the C#, F#, you would hit issues then with the like Azure steps.
That's right.
Yeah.
At the moment.
At the moment, yeah.
I was just putting in the channel, you should be able to run Mono F# on a .NET Calamari.
Honestly, I'd be interested to see if we actually have demand for Mono F#, given our low uptake of F# on
C#, sorry, C#, whatever.
it's one of those trade-offs between the effort, engineering effort and maintenance versus actual usage. And that feels like one of those things that's at the moment, at this point in time, not really worth investing in.
My point is it works. It should work already.
So Shane, you had a you got a Debian package there, which works really well for Debian and its derivatives. What about other package formats for other distros?
Yeah, we just provided that one for the moment because we thought that would be the most popular. So that's part of our getting feedback, I guess, is what do people expect when they're installing and setting up a Linux Tentacle.
Cool.
This is all in the Tentacle repo, right? So it's open source.
Tentacle is private at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be nice to
it would be nice to
open
open
source the install script.
Yeah.
There is intent to open source the Tentacle repo. Just one of those ones that needs time.
Yeah. Shane, sorry, I was going to ask, from a testing perspective, what do you see now happening on our testing permutations?
For the API test, you mean?
Mm.
I think the plan is to run a Linux Tentacle in a Docker container and then just run the API test that makes sense, because there's going to be a lot that don't make sense. So it would be another, I don't know how many flavors of Linux we'd want to run it on, but it feels like it's going to be another in the category of, at the moment we have runs on different flavors of Windows. It would just be another entry in there.
Mm. How about UI changes? Like, obviously we've got steps that definitely will not work on a Linux box. So how are we going to convey that to the user, or are we?
I'm hoping we can trust that they know what can run on their machines and what can't.
We've never made an effort before to differentiate SSH targets versus tentacles even, and it doesn't really come up.
I think in most cases it's pretty obvious. Like, you can't run an IIS step. That's just not going to work. You can't install a certificate into the Windows Store. The trickier ones are going to be those Azure steps. I think running on workers, like Shannon said, that's probably something we're going to need to solve.
It's not something we can tell ahead of time anyway, because you don't know the targets until the deployment time.
No, the best we can do is handle good error messages, but ultimately it's going to be an error message in some way or form.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's possibly things we can do with the Azure stuff, because I believe the AZ commands and so on all work from Linux. So we may be able to look at options for re-implementing some of the step behavior, the way we do it, and maybe it'll work then.
Yeah, going forward, we definitely expect to support it using things like, say, the AZ commands, particularly given, ideally with hosted, we want to start being able to push a lot of the worker jobs potentially to Linux workers, because that ends up bringing the cost down, etc. So
yeah,
that's definitely something to keep investigating.
Remove some of the headaches we have with the dependencies on the SDK as well.
Yeah.
Does the Tentacle need this a sudo account to run on?
I don't actually know. I don't think so. It just needs access to files. So no, I don't think you can run it on whatever account has access to the files that it requires.
Like in Windows, to open a port on the HTTP listener, you actually need elevated credentials. So that doesn't apply in Linux.
Not on the high ports.
Oh, okay.
I could imagine the installer might need sudo for the Tentacle if you want to register it with
Oh yeah, that would be happy with that.
Okay, wrap it up. See you later. Have a good week.
Nice demo, Shane.
Great demo.
Nice.